Aitch. Dave, when was the last time we talked about Aitch? Because we definitely have.
Yeah, we talked about him twice this year. We talked about him with his feature War on the Artie debut mixtape Peer Pressure, his compatriot across the pond in UK hip hop, white rappers at that in UK hip hop. And then we also mentioned him as a candidate for XXL Freshman 2022, would have been the second British rapper to be selected had he been picked. Although he was not picked. And while I think H is still rising in popularity in the United States, his accomplishments in the UK are quite long already for someone who's only 22, has only been rapping in a mainstream way for a few years. I believe he has 7 top 10s in the UK, 5 platinum songs. This is his debut album, though, Close to Home. I think a lot of expectations were put on this for MH, for an artist who has been popular but is still young, still perhaps finding what that career is going to sound like, as someone who kind of not dissimilar to Artie came up and as like in viewed as like kind of, oh, there's that cheeky white guy rapping, he's pretty good though. And while I don't know if H is quite as funny as Artie is, like Artie just says some ridiculous shit, H is a bit more seasoned, and I think there was a nice bit of range on this, more than I had heard on his past EPs. I think most famously people would know him from his song Rain with AJ Tracy, which is just an awesome banger. And of course, Agent AJ did link again on this new album. But what did you think? H's debut album, Close to Home.
So, War, I really loved that song from Artie's album. I thought that was a really strong feature. And the album starts off in a very similar type of vein. Belgrave Road 1, Louis Vuitton in 1989 are straight, like that grime, like London rap feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the album kind of starts to change a little bit. And you get Baby featuring Ashanti on
Right.
there. A few songs
Ashanti
later,
sample, really, not
yeah,
not really a
Ashanti
feature.
Champ. Yes, thank you for the clarification, because that is important. Ashanti isn't showing out for H quite yet. Um, in Disguise with Bakar, I think is like a real
Mm.
like delineation point in this album, because then it starts to get a lot more like poppy and a lot more like upbeat and a little bit more away from what I was expecting. And what group came to mind was Gym Class Heroes for me and Travie McCoy,
Oh my
with a lot of this
gosh.
stuff. If you listen to In Disguise, that could have been a Gym Class Hero song. And I'm like, I mean, say what you want about Gym Class Heroes, they were huge for a period of time back in the
Yeah.
2000s.
Cupid's
Travie
chokehold.
Travie McCoy was everywhere, and I think H has some of that in him. Now I think he's a much more talented actual rapper. Like what
Mm.
like those first 3 songs, Belgrave Road 1, Louis Vuitton 1989, are straight bangers. Awesome way to open the album. I think it starts to peter out a little bit from there. But I like when he does that more. But he does it okay even with people like AJ Tracy and Ed Sheeran later on. Like I think he
Mm.
those songs aren't horrible. So there's some potential for some maybe broader appeal than just that grime rap. But did you get the same feeling?
Yeah, I guess I can hear what you mean. I think the thing there's two things about that, right? H is not as funny as Artie,
Mm.
and he's not as hard as AJ Tracy. He's a bit almost non-threatening at times. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of how he's come across the whole time. He doesn't run away from that either. And when he does his brand of a trap song on like Check on this one, it comes across to me as like super authentic because he doesn't actually run away from who he is and who he isn't. Like I still think like it's fun to hear his spin on like those party joints, if that makes sense. The other thing too is because he's from Manchester, he's not from London. He has a different accent. He sounds different
Mhm.
than other English rappers, at least the mainstream ones that we know, because most of them are not from the north. And something about him, I think he just has a bit of a unique presence. And yeah, I think that's funny to. I'd be curious if anyone has really made that connection before. The Travie McCoy across the pond UK rap like cadence and style. That's interesting. Um, I think if you listen to a song like My G featuring Ed Sheeran, obviously huge feature to pull Ed Sheeran on your debut album. But if you go a bit
I
more
mean,
under the hood with that one, it's actually like a love letter to his younger sister who has Down syndrome, and it's a message song, you know. And
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh yeah, actually, it makes perfect sense that you'd have Ed Sheeran singing the hook for this one. You know, it's like it all
Mhm.
kind of fits. So it's cool to hear. I think a really heartfelt, intentional song like My G alongside just something fun like Check or something like Our Kid with AJ Tracy, where he's literally going bar for bar back and forth with his contemporary rapper. You know, so well, I don't think he's a refined product yet. He's clearly made a bunch of good songs at this point. And of course, Rain is certified at this point. He's made enough of these songs to be like, yeah, there's the momentum is definitely going forward. He's definitely rapidly rising talent.
Yeah, the Ed Sheeran point where great to get him doing the feature, but he's also been doing a lot of features recently on up and coming
Mm,
albums. Talk about Fireboy just a few weeks back and him hopping on those tracks. So
yeah.
he's working, he's willing to hop on and
He's
catch
also a
fire
fan
with
of
some of
UK
these.
rap,
Yeah,
truthfully, as a British man himself. So
and he
perhaps
definitely
not that.
wishes he was a rapper for sure, or at least better
Yeah.
at it than he is. Um, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the songs that you shouted out, and yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to like on here. I'm very interested to see if he chooses to like refine more in certain lanes, or if he's going to try to stay like broad in terms of appeal. Because like you mentioned, like the AJ Tracy and my G Ed Sheeran song are very different. Those first few songs compared to
Mhm.
songs like Sunshine and In Disguise are very different. So he's got a lot of different sounds he's trying here, and I think he does them all fairly well. Some better than others, obviously.
Yeah, I think the key thing with him too is he has to determine, eventually has to determine what kind of artist he wants to be if he's going to target uh, mainstream rap success in the US without alienating his fans in the UK, and whether that is even a real thing to decide. And that's not just a Strutman argument, you know, because we've seen Stormzy and Skepta and Heady One and on smaller degrees, people like AJ, you know, find success in the US and still be legends in the UK. Now, is Aitch and RD probably as well? Are they the next up on that regard? It'd be interesting to see how a UK rapper, UK white rapper, would cross over to the US, given how white rappers are received both positively and negatively just in the space of hip hop, you know? Like,
Mhm.
how does H fit in the Jack Harlow moment we're living in? You know, tough
Mm.
to say. And we're probably a few years away from finding that out. But yeah, I'm definitely definitely rooting for him. He seems like a really nice guy as well. Seems pretty funny and down to earth. So, um, was happy that close to home went as well as it did because made do on a lot of that hype and talent.
Yeah, I think Close to Home is worth listening to, if nothing else, than to be tuning into someone that seems like they're going to be making a name for themselves even more moving forward.